blow this scene, get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
All right, we're going to start just a little bit early tonight. I'm going to go ahead and double check, make sure that my microphone is working because I've yet to hire any sound technicians. Oh boy, you guys had better enjoy the music that I'm putting out in front of the show because I'm surprised I've gotten away with it for this long, I'll admit. Although I need to update myself on fair use policy. It's been a while since my high school English literature class. It seems insane. I'm sharing music. Half of the people who I talk to will come and say, hey, listen, I love your show, but first and foremost, thank you for introducing me to Polyphia. So I'm just afraid that once I get a little bit more notoriety, so the 300 or so viewers that I tend to get on each show, you're welcome. I've always wanted to be able to share some music and stuff like that because music's amazing. Music's like the second best thing in the world other than the color green. Listen guys, let's just jump right into it. Hello and welcome Yang Gang to Securing the Bag with Seth Underwood. This is episode 19. And on episode 19, we have a lot to talk about and a little time to do so because, well, the technological singularity is at hand and the machine elves wait for no one. But you know what's even closer than the tech singularity is the July 2019 Democratic debates hosted by CNN. We are now 22 days away from this event, and hopefully, we will not be silenced this time around. The electricity is in the air, and we have quite a little bit to speak about concerning the view. The view from here, our outlook, the perspective that we have on things heading forward as we do always, but yes, of course, also the view that happened earlier today, most notably with Whoopi Goldberg. I can't think of anyone else on the panel except for Whoopi. I think the view, I think Whoopi. It's just, that's what it is. But also Meghan McCain, as I completely forgot that I knew who was on there. So we're going to be discussing a lot about that today. We're also going to move into some more kind of philosophical discussion about a universal basic income that I've been mulling over in my head for the past couple days. Wanted to share some thoughts about it here and there. I also wanted to say, in case I'm a little bit out of it today, this is my first time that I'm able to get back into the seat after not having to travel between that house that I was looking after for a while, and this is the first day that I'm back after working out. So if I'm a little just out of it, forgive me. We'll be back in action real soon. Every now and then, once you can get into the routine of working out, it's okay. But that first day you get back into it, it can really kind of set things off. Okay, so first of all, color green, make sure you spend 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes. I mean, that's like the bare minimum. Out in nature, surround yourself by green, but also you got to work out because there is a chemist in your head who only accepts uncomfortness, but he will supply you with the goods. He will supply you with the dopamine, and it's just an exchange of pain to dopamine. So you get out there, you spend a little bit of time exercising, make it a habit, 28 days to make a habit. Your life will just change tremendously. But don't take it from me. Real quick, some quick business before we go any further tonight. I would like to thank the new subscribers of my show. I get more every single day, and it's really inflating my ego. I'm starting to get a massive head, and I love it. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that you guys are tuning in, that you're interested in what that I have to say. But make sure that you're subscribed, that you're ringing the bell, you're sharing this with any other members of the Yang Gang, anyone who you think may be interested in UBI or Yang. Send them all over to my direction. My goal is 1,000 subscribers for $1,000 a month, and we are well on our way. And second, thank you so much again to my loyal Patreons who have been helping out the show, making sure that I have the ability to continue on and do so. If you've got it in you to buy me a coffee every month or so, that would be greatly in your debt, so to say. So thank you. And once again, thank you. I really do appreciate it. I want to make sure that advertisements are far, far away from this show, and here in a little bit we're going to see exactly just how badly that can mess up the flow of a really good, otherwise conversation. Man, we got a glimpse at cable today, and as a millennial, it gets my skin crawling. That doesn't make sense to me. This weird veil illusion that's really just meant to sell product. We're going to have to dive a little into it, but luckily for you, I can't get my tech to work. I got that superimposed video to work for just for a second or so, and now I can't seem to get it to work at all. So We're just going to have audio today. Real quick, I'm going to take a look through the chat, greet some of the people who are in here. Makina, as always, thank you for joining. Machiavelli, you as well. Don Gaming, thanks. Elsa, it's so good to have you here live. I appreciate you joining in the stream. Nash, welcome. Helen, please talk about Yang's face as people argued across him. Yes, no, I'm believe me, there's going to be a still image of that moment. There was that's the thing though. Okay, I don't watch The View, obviously. I'm not the target demographic for The View. I'm not even the right age group. Is this how it always kind of plays out? Do they speak so over each other all the time? Or what I'm hoping is that this may be a bit of a special occasion. It felt to me that, like a universal basic income concept tends to do, it really got the cogs starting to turn in the hosts' minds. It seemed like Meghan McCain had some preconceived notions and some things that she wanted to say, and we're going to talk a lot about her because she's the most notable person. I went into it thinking, oh God, what is Whoopi going to do? Because, I don't know, I think I remember a discussion that they had about Bernie Sanders in 2016, and it was like the most notable thing about it was Whoopi going off on a long discussion, like straight from the boomer's mouth. You would expect this boomer 100% of the way saying, this is why are we taking all of these people who are working so hard? Why are we taking their money and that kind of thing going through and through? And I thought we were going to get a lot of that tonight. And surprisingly, no. If anything, Whoopi had some very interesting things to bring up and say. And you'll see. We're gonna go into it. We're gonna go into it real quick. All right. So thank you all to the chat for joining in. We're just gonna go ahead and dive into it tonight. Again, it might be a little bit shorter of an episode because, oh man, I'm going to have to get some early sleep tonight, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and take a listen into what The View has to say. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and put this on anyways. Before we do that, like I said, I'm not a target demographic, and the concept of cable and The View and talk shows, they were a little foreign to me. I went ahead and just did a look in. I wanted to see what kind of reach we've been getting with this on The View. So here, just a quick search for the ratings. In November of 2008, The View's post-election day telecast garnered the biggest audience in the show's history at 6.2 million total views, becoming the week's most watched program in daytime television. So these are like notable episodes. Hold on. In 2013, the show was reported to be having an average of 3.1 million daily viewers, which outpaced the rival talk show The Talk. Real original on that one. In 2014, the May 16 farewell to Barbara Walters garnered 5.2 million total viewers. So, we're between 3 million on average about, oh God, it's almost a decade ago, 2013. That's insane. In September 2014, 18, Rosie O'Donnell, we're finding... Okay, here we go. In August of 2017, it was reported that season 20 of the series averaged 2.816 million viewers per episode, marking its most watched season in 3 years, while also becoming the only broadcast daytime show to grow its overall audience from the previous season. During the first week in November, the show averaged 2.94 million viewers, the fourth week in a row with year-to-year gains. So that's very interesting. What we're seeing here is obviously a decline in total viewership from 2013. People cutting the cables, just like myself. But the only talk show, daytime talk show host, the only one to actually grow in the year 2017 was The View, which means this is a show that is specifically catered to the female demographic, older female age, and I think as well too minority groups, especially with Whoopi. But I think there's a huge long list. It said, I saw Raven Simone's from Disney Channel. Has she been a host on The View? But I was looking through and seeing some of the last producers and stuff like that. But Whoopi has definitely made her voice on The View. So this is exactly the type of media that we need to push for in the Yang Gang, because as we've expressed before, the true battle here is on the left. It's securing the Democratic nomination. And in order to do so, we have to make ourselves known past Joe Rogan's podcast, even though Joe Rogan's podcast is literally what sent him stratospheric. we have to be doing more of this, and we have to do as much of this before the July debates so that we can get people interested in it. It's going to be a lot harder for CNN to pull the same types of shenanigans as MSNBC after you now have a large portion of boomer, especially boomer women looking at it. They will definitely raise hell if they see some shenanigans going on. So I'm happy. I'm so happy to see this happen. I went in with a little bit of trepidation, but as you'll see in just a second, it all turned out okay. So let's go ahead and take a listen here.
Please welcome.
Let me make sure you guys can hear this. It looks like all systems are go.
Well, Mr. Yang, I was telling you I have a dear friend who's
Little
part
quiet,
of
I
the
think.
gang and is riding very hard for you. So he's very excited you're on
That's
today.
as loud as
So
it'll go.
I was first really introduced to you in the last debate, but there's a controversy going on right now because you accused NBC of cutting your mic off at times when you wanted to interject. NBC has denied that's happened, but it's a big conspiracy all over the internet. Can you clarify what happened?
Well, I was only asked 2 questions over 2 hours, and that's, like, there for everyone to see. And so I just shared my experience with some supporters after the fact, but we're just thrilled that I have another debate in July, and then
So I gotta say, this is really interesting. I think this is the first time that I've heard him respond to this in an interview, which means that as I've said, it's been a long couple of days here. And the way that he's doing this is very thought out. There's a lot of tact involved with this response. He's making it clear he hasn't actually answered the question. If you hear the way that he's responded here, he says he was sharing his experience with his supporters. That's as far as he goes with it. He drops it and immediately says, we're confident we're going to have a better experience the next time around.
also in September and October to keep getting our ideas out to the American people.
But how do you make it so you speak more than 3 minutes?
Well, we were joking that maybe I'd have like a sign or something. I could like hold it up. But we're very confident that we'll get more opportunities in the
Were you
debates
the
to come.
only one that happened to? Or did somebody else also get screwed out?
I think one of the other candidates said that her mic was also cut at various
Marianne,
times.
So again, Marianne was the only person to back Yang up at the end of it. And he's being careful here in his answer too. He's not saying her name first and foremost. But he needs to say it too. And it's clear that they know, and she brings it up right here.
Jameson?
Yeah, I think that's right. I haven't talked to Marianne about it though.
Yeah, because he spoke less than 3 minutes, or about 3 minutes. But you have some very dedicated followers. They call themselves the Yang Gang. Supporters wear hats that have math written across the top. Make America think harder.
I love that energy. I love the applause that comes right after she makes it known, make America think harder. There was just a tweet that Yang just made where he said something about being in the long haul. I responded and I said, I am as well. I think what you're doing here is sparking a new renaissance of critical thinking, of logic, and the opening of the human mind. I really do think that's what's happening here. We're seeing a fashionably late and duly needed experience of people enjoying the fact that critical thinking and reasoning is a value, right? That is so cool. That is so cool. I love it.
PowerPoints at your rallies. And there's a YouTube channel dedicated to getting you elected called Nerds for Andrew Young 2020.
Holy crap. I bet he lost his mind. He just got a shout out right here. You can't see it because I can't get the video up, but they've got a picture of his YouTube page right there. They called him Andrew Young. Obvious slip of the tongue right there, but also a good slip. Andrew Young. Young has good associations, connotations with it. Maybe not for the views viewership, but wow, I had a weird moment of empathy with Nerds for Yang right there, and I thought if my name was dropped right there, jeez, oh my god, like good for him, that's amazing. And you guys should definitely check him out. He's way more mathematically analytical about Yang and comes at this from a much more grounded place. I like to come from all angles on Yang, and so as such, there's some special views that may be missed. Go and check out Nerds for Yang if you have not already.
So, and I love that actually, because I do think that, I give a lot of credit to the American people. I think we're smarter than people are giving us credit for. And that's what I think you're trying to tap into. So tell us about that.
Well,
I hate that I don't know these hosts' names. I really only know Whoopi and Meghan McCain, but the host who's speaking right now, she seems most deeply interested in Yang and the ways that you can see it in her face too. She right here as well, what she's speaking about is something that I've brought up too, is that I brought up the fact that Problem Solvers podcast did this entire discussion about the exhausted majority and the people who have largely just given up on politics, given up on the whole charade. And it's so true what's being said here is that people are smarter than we give them credit for. They're much smarter than we give them credit for. This is going to be really the underlying theme of tonight's episode. And if you treat them as a smart individual, they will respond with the type of energy that the Yang Gang movement is responding with. It's like, wow, here's someone who's coming along and saying, you know, the people have the power. They've got the intellect and the wits to know how to fix this country. I'm going to facilitate that in any way that I can. Let's continue.
My campaign's dedicated to trying to solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected. We're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution. And so Make America Think Harder is trying to get America focused on the fact that it's certainly not immigrants that are causing these problems. It's the fact that technology is pushing our economy to a point where more and more Americans are having a harder time finding paths forward. Amazon's closing 30% of our malls and stores in the next 4 years, and being a retail worker is still the most common job in this country. The average retail worker is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. We know she doesn't have much in the way of savings. So as her stores close, the opportunities disappear. We have to start focusing on solving those problems, and that's what Make America Think Harder. It's the opposite of this call to yesteryear. We need to start solving the problems of today.
Is anybody in the Republican Party giving any thought to that, what you just said?
Well, when you talk to politicians about this economic transformation we're in the midst of, unfortunately, a lot of the solutions revolve around education and retraining. But I looked into the studies around retraining manufacturing workers in the Midwest, and the results were very, very bad. 0 to 15% success rates.
Yeah.
So if you're a politician and you say, hey, we're going to educate Americans for the jobs of the future, then everyone's like, okay, that sounds great. But then when you dig into the reality, unfortunately, that's not the way it works.
Well, it didn't work, right? Because we tried to do that when we moved mining.
Yeah.
We said we were going to retrain people, and it didn't work, as we heard from various people.
And now I'm remembering exactly what it was about Whoopi that had me scratching my head so hard in 2016, is that she very accurately is able to illustrate some of the hardships of the working class. And she's obviously very cognizant of those things. And her reaction to Bernie and his overall platform proposal just seemed so short of thought from where she comes from, I guess. And for her to bring it up here and say, well, yeah, you know, it was a pretty ultimate failure, and the issues involved with a type of, well, learn to code, you know, that entire problem. Very astute observation for her to make.
Saying, well, there's nothing out there for me.
Well, when they're climate deniers also, they don't even look at the possibility of having green jobs,
yeah,
which a lot of people could go into that. But anyway,
Yes.
You are also proposing something of a basic universal income, a freedom dividend.
That's right.
You call it. What does that mean exactly?
So this is an idea that's been with America since our founding. Thomas Paine was for it. Martin Luther King championed it in 1967. It's a dividend for every American as a right of citizenship. So under my plan, every American adult would receive $1,000 a month, starting at age 18 every month until you expire.
What?
Yes.
There it is. There's Whoopi with the what? That was what I was expecting. I was expecting her to jump right now, but she did not.
Yeah.
That will cost $3 trillion. Where's this money?
Wait, no. Maybe that wasn't Whoopi. That was this individual here. So I've got Joy. So I'm not sure the fourth individual.
Coming from?
So
And what is the point of it, really? They say if you give a man a fish, if you give a man a fishing line, he can fish. If you give him one fish, he'll just eat that fish, something like that.
Okay. I'm not harping on her because what happens next is very interesting here. But what she just said right there, this is huge in this one sentence. You can see the dissonance involved, especially in how fast this turns over in just a couple seconds. So she brings up what does that accomplish, right? That's the first part. What does giving $1,000 to people accomplish? And I think Joy backs this up real quick, and she says this is transformative for people who need it. And it's like, boom, that's what makes me believe that she's been looking at this a bit herself. But two, she's giving the give a man a fish, teach a man to fish analogy here. And if you haven't seen Scott Santon's take on this, the best way to respond to this just at face value is, well, okay, it used to be give a man a fish for a day, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he eats for life. But now Scott Santon's brings in the third part of this equation and says, program a robot to fish and to fish the entire pond with, in a way that a human can't keep up with. Who gets to eat? Does just the owner of that robot get to eat the fish, or does everyone get to eat the fish? That's the question at this point. The dynamics have significantly changed. And this is a large part of what I like to say why the Industrial Revolution, you can't just make the equation shift, right? Because things are different this time around. We've had 100 years, and if you understand the nature of exponential technology, you'll understand that, well, there's a lot of reason to believe it's not the same here. Software in general, being one, I like to harp on this. You guys understand it. You guys know. But I think it's so boomer. This is exactly what you expect for a boomer to hear. What's amazing though is like what he responds with. I feel like they know that the campaign is they've had some sort of what do you call them? They get control groups in and they ask them questions to see how they respond with it. They know the best way of answering these questions. Listen to what happens here.
I think I know the saying you're talking about.
How does it go? You know that one? So you hand somebody $1,000. Now, what good is that? They spend $1,000, big deal.
Though, for people that are struggling.
I know it's a bit of a game changer, but it's not a long-term solution. Come on.
It actually would help build a more
It's not a long-term solution. I'm going to come back to that.
human-centered economy, what I call the trickle-up economy, because it would allow more people to do the kind of work that they want to do, including people like my wife, who's at home with our 2 young boys, one of whom is autistic. And right now, the market values her work at 0. GDP values her work at 0. If you start putting resources into our hands, it actually expands what we think of.
I'm sorry, they showed a picture of his family again. I cannot get over how perfect his wife's hair is. I don't even notice hair. His wife has the best hair, and I'm wondering what sort of deal with the devil she did to get that. Let's continue.
As work.
Well, now you're talking about paying women for doing housework and doing work at home, being mothers. That's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
Oh, good.
That's different.
Okay, so I don't know if you could hear that. The crowd starts cheering, and she says, that's different. She says, now what you're talking about is paying women to be mothers and to do that. That's different. This is the thing. So the universal basic income, part of the reason why it's so cerebral, part of the reason why the Yang Gang is so unbelievably passionate about this idea is because it brings up the discussion about deservedness, about work, about labor, about meaning, about fulfillment, about what makes you an individual who is helping society. And so let's deconstruct her image of what's going on here for just a second. Her first reaction is, what does this accomplish? $1,000. You give someone $1,000 and she makes the fish analogy. You give them fish, they never learn how to fish themselves, and they're inept, and they're going to be these people who will never be able to take care of themselves without the government dole. That's her first take. And then she hears the angle of, well, think about what $1,000 will do for all of the type of work that is currently happening now, but never compensated for in the form of a paycheck. And she says, well, now you're speaking my language. Now we're onto something, but that's different, right? She says, hold on, but I'm trying to make a distinction here. And the distinction she's attempting to make is, well, these people are working. These people are contributing to society. And I want them to get it, sure. And here's the critical part, right? She's in the deservedness mode now. She's determining, I don't want some groups to get it, right? I don't want someone who's just sitting around all day to get the check. That's going to be terrible. And what does that do? That's just going to breed a group of lazy people. But if they have, right? So this is the thing. Hold on, let me collect my thoughts here for a second. I had this all planned out. So obviously universal basic income strikes at the question of like, what is deservedness? Well, basically, and this is a difficult thing to say just coming at it this angle, but I want to just get it out there. One, everyone should be able to have a basic life standard met for, right? We can have the conversation about deservedness when it comes to, okay, well, who deserves a really nice, powerful car or a luxury like house, right? Yeah, okay, you know what? I am a fan of the meritocracy. I'm a fan of getting rewarded for the sweat of your brow. But at the same time, if poverty kicked people into gear, right? If poverty was teaching people how to fish, then everyone would know how to fish right now. The second thing is, well, okay, people have to eat fish. They have to eat fish. So are you training them to eat fish? And as we just discussed, the government's pretty terrible at training people how to fish. Very, very terrible. And like the presumption here is that, well, if you're an individual who's working at Walmart and you're standing behind a cash register for 8 hours a day, you are suddenly fishing, right? Like now we're talking about someone who's fishing. And now we're in this weird quasi discussion of okay, well, we've identified this as an area of where people are effectively providing for society. The discussion never seems to be about deservingness and just, at the very least, having enough to eat, to sleep, and a place to stay. And then after that point, right, can you make that distinction at all? And if you do, well, then no one falls through the cracks. Then, yes, every single woman on the planet is now being paid for housework, for raising a child, and it's unconditional and it's universal. And if the worst thing that happens there is that someone sits around laying on their couch eating potato chips all day, well, that's actually not a bad outcome, right? Because one, we can be guaranteed just by data that is a outlier scenario. But two, how likely is it that same couch potato, would be committing crime out of desperation, would be mentally ill, would be out on the street, would be shooting up heroin? And yeah, they may actually still choose to shoot up heroin, but if they're that's why we need to legalize heroin, because they're going to continue to make poor choices, but at least we can get some tax revenue out of them. Well, okay, listen, that's rough. That's a real rough thing to say. No, that's a step beyond, though. That's a step beyond. We can continue to address these problems, but let's go ahead and make sure that we get universal basic income in the door, and then we can talk about it. And I really do believe that it's a prerequisite to solving the opioid crisis. But let's go ahead and continue just a few minutes here.
Well, I mean, again, and this is a game changer for the waitress at the diner who's getting harassed by her boss. It's a game changer for the single mom who's stuck in an abusive relationship. Yes. Like, we need to put the economic resources into people's hands to be able to improve.
I love the way that you hear them.
This exactly. Well, you know, listen to Elizabeth Warren. She's got a plan. Yep. She's charging 2% over certain millions and millions and millions. What are you going to do?
So my plan is to get the resources from the big winners of the 21st century economy. So the big winners are who? Amazon.
I got a little triggered right there because I was like, he's going to tell you. He's going to tell you the plan. He's known for policy and planning and everything like that. But like, this is what I'm saying. And from what I hear in the chat, from what I've seen, this is pretty much basically what The View does. They get ahead of themselves. They talk over each other a little bit. But I really do think that what we're seeing here, what you're hearing, because I can't get the video up, but you should see his face when they're talking over each other. I think he looks at the camera at one point. Great. It's fantastic. He's like, listen, everything. And on top of that, he's also going to be Jim from The Office as president. Can you imagine like him doing a press briefing and then do a camera look? I would love it. Okay, but I'm getting away. I'm getting away from everything. What I think we're seeing here, right? It's the cogs turning. They're getting energetic, and like the energy comes through with the objections, and then it's like you pass one wall, then other one's there, you pass the other obstacle, but the conversation starts kicking, man, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's the renaissance of thought that I was talking about a little earlier. Let's continue.
$1 trillion company paid zero in taxes, less than everyone in this room. Apple, Netflix, Google, these companies are great at just not paying a whole lot of taxes.
Right.
And so what you do is you have to look around the world and see that other countries have put a mechanism in place so the American people get a tiny slice of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, every Uber mile, and that's enough to pay for a dividend of $1,000 a month, particularly because this money just comes back to us over and over again.
Yeah, but you're assuming that those companies are just going to go on ad infinitum, making millions and millions.
Amazon seems to be doing that.
With all due respect, as the millennial at the table.
All right, okay. Here comes Megan coming in hot, and we're gonna talk about that. But I'm gonna speak about what she just said right there. She said, "Well, you're assuming that Amazon's just gonna keep on making more and more and more and more ad infinitum." And of course, he was very vague about the concept of the value-added tax, and we have discussed how it could be placed upon certain luxury items that wouldn't be purchased, but that would inhibit the ability to fund the universal basic income. And overall, I'm not convinced at all that there's any worry with having it on a general array of goods, because it's actually impossible for people under 93% of the population to spend more than they receive. But regardless, that was a failure on Andrew's part to explain that the value-added tax isn't just targeted on Amazon itself. It's targeted on whatever titans of industries may be in any given place or time. But that's there. What I wanted to kind of laugh at, not at her, but chuckle at, was she just brought up the issue of, I guess, an issue of capitalism, of unbridled growth, of the belief of a system that will grow forever, right? That is an issue overall. And again, I mean, ultimately, I would sit here and we would talk for quite a while about how I actually see the universal basic income as the penultimate policy that's transitioning us past basically any sort of system that you've seen at this point. Because what a basic income is basically a band-aid on a problem that is, well, valuation and currency and money are eventually not going to mean anything, because it's all based upon the idea of scarcity, of value derived from scarcity. Now, there's always going to be scarcity. We live in a finite universe. However, it's going to quickly reach a point at which abundance is of the nature that the systems that we have in place break down. And so what we see, I think, is universal basic income gets enacted, and it, first and foremost, it changes our relationship with work. It changes our relationship to labor, and the renaissance of thought that I brought up gets people to think critically about what it means to be alive in this universe. What are the problems that we are set to solve? Once you have 3.5 million truck drivers, automated away, and the autonomous productivity that suggests, we're now able to think a little more broadly, right? And that includes thinking past capitalism. That being said, though, it's important that we're able to empower individuals as we transition to this next way of life. I think that's the important part of this. It's also the way that we can avoid violent upheaval as we go through and through. Now, that's a very detailed, complex conversation to have, but it came from that question that she made. And again, this is why I love this so much. You've got this group of people. I really hope that, because I know there's a lot of Yang Gang members out there. I've seen the analytics on my stream. Okay, I'm so happy that I have some girls in my chat, but you guys, I'm telling you, it's less than 10%. Like, and Christine, I think, is probably very happy that I've found an outlet to push my Yang enthusiasm through. But, like politics and all of this kind of things, it's not a fun conversation to have. There's better things to talk about at the end of the day, and more enjoyable things to talk about. But this, I hope, might be sparking that thought of, oh, wait, you know what? Seth's been talking about the universal basic income, and in this way, I can see how it would really transform the the voice of the female in this country, the empowerment of the female in this country. I think right now we're in this quasi state where Alyssa Milano might be getting, she's had an open invitation extended for Yang, and I'm so excited about this because I do think, again, there's so many broad implications for universal basic income, but what this would mean, one, for vets, how we have just completely left by the wayside vets in this country. Why do I keep thinking veterinarian? Veterans. And two, women. I mean, I've had a divorce in my like, not me personally, but my parents divorced, and after the fact, as I'm able to look back on it as an adult, what was so impacting on me, because I'm also leaving the house at this time, I'm also going out on my own, and was understanding how terrifying it was to go out on your own. She looked after me the entire life. It was your dynamic nuclear family, your classical nuclear family, and all of a sudden she is existentially, it's an existential crisis as well as an emotional crisis, and it's all exacerbated by the problem of finances. And oh my God, what it would mean to allow people to leave situations that need a change, right? Because things bottle up over the time, and this is a huge issue. And if you've been in any amount of therapy sessions, you know that things need to be dealt with. And if you're pushing it off because of actual, very real fears of, oh God, what is going to happen to me if I leave what I am safe with, then the same goes for people in abused relationships, people with abusive relationships in the workplace. These are some cerebral, amazing discussions to have, and I really think that this is something that's being spoken about over the dinner table tonight, or in group chats across the country. Right now, we can be about sure that maybe 2 million people saw this, maybe a little less, but that's enough. This is the demographic that we're aiming at. This is it. We got to get a little bit more of this. He would do very well to get on Alyssa's podcast. I'm hoping that may happen. She's been very, very pro Yang. Real quick, we're gonna pause right here before Meghan McCain, because boy, we're about to go into a whirlwind. I'm gonna read some of these comments very quickly. I was named after Alyssa Milano, so that's cool. Well, great. It's meant to be. It's one of those things where the stars are lining up. It's too much to be a coincidence. Was excited to see Alyssa Milano's invitation via a person's flexibility to safely move between jobs. That is huge. That is huge. So in the studies that's been done on universal basic incomes, looking at how people keep their relationship with work, what's been found is people continue to choose to work, but you do see, especially with teenagers and mothers, they spend more time searching for better jobs more suited for them, and including men as well. So they continue to work, but you do see an amount of change in the workforce as people find things that are more suited to them. And I think that's huge. I talk a lot about the psychological damage that's been incurred from a workforce predominantly of people who hate their jobs. And if we can find a way of saying, hey, you know what, you've got the ability to actually seek out what you want to do, that's tremendous, man. You don't know how many times, and I'm just coming at this from a different angle than them, I know, but we go and get fast food, the roommates and everyone, we sit down to watch something at night, and of course the Wendy's, the wherever, has messed up the order. And I sit back and I say, well, listen, they don't care. They're being paid piss poor wages. They have to be there. They have to show up, right? Because they're fishing, right? I can't blame them. I'm still gonna treat them with a smile when I go through there the next day, because I guarantee I would be doing the same thing. Okay, actually no. You all know that I've worked many jobs and I've hated all of them, but I've still given it my all. But I can't expect other people to do the same thing. I mean, that kind of positivity. If your outlook is, my God, I'm going to be a minimum wage worker for the next 10 years, and maybe you've got a kid at home, or you're paying, child support payments every month, and you're kind of just stuck at a certain point. I'm not. That's exactly what I expect to happen. That is exactly what I expect to happen. But so here's the thing: you find people who are able to pursue what they're passionate in, and just think about this, right? Just think about this for a second. We could have a society of people who do what they're wanting to do, and they're putting the kind of passion and joy. You know, I'm gonna be a little sappy here, but I'm really, really loving being able to do this stream right now. This is what I want to do. This is what I've been told by other people I'm good at. So I'm hopefully, yeah, you know, I want to keep it going. Other people could do this. Other people could do this. And then when you go get a service done or a good purchased, you know that that good was made or that service is being performed by someone who is interested in what they're doing. And if you've got a chef who it is their passion in life, see your face light up when you take a when you take a stab at that ratatouille and you put it in your mouth, right? Or Jiro Dreams of Sushi, amazing Netflix documentary, right? When it's your life's purpose to fulfill that type of artistry, creativity, or if you're an architect, you know, like that's the vision. And the Yang Gang knows this. The Yang Gang feels that within them of, whoa, okay, Renaissance 2.0. This is huge. This is huge. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm harping on it. Let's go ahead and continue on here. Here comes Meghan McCain. Quick warning the tone may shift here in just a couple seconds, but let's go.
I would love
I'm a millennial.
But my generation. Okay, excuse me, it's Joy and I as the millennials at the table. But every Democrat that comes on, the answer is write a check. And the problem is the deficit is going to my generation, and that's already the problem right now. So is there
Wait a
any
minute,
answer
who created
to anything?
that deficit?
I'm asking
Your
the
party.
presidential candidate this question,
All right.
if you don't mind.
I don't mind, but
There
I
it
won't
is.
answer it anyway.
An answer that is.
They flashed on his face for a
Okay.
second, and
Go
he's
ahead,
just
sir,
like,
you can answer over you.
No, please. I understand the question. And so I've run companies, and you have a revenue problem in this country, and you have an expense problem in this country. And you have to go after both of them. But the big winners, so if you have artificial intelligence that Amazon's investing billions of dollars in, could displace 3.5 million truck drivers.
all right, I've got 22 viewers here right now. Maybe one of you is a little more learned in economics than I am. I like to think that I'm above the layman. But I've had this notion that, like, okay, if the goal is that we're going to be paying down the debt, right? And at some point, according to the econ classes that I've taken, a certain amount of debt is reasonable. A certain amount of debt is needed. Right. It doesn't seem to be burdened upon the individual, or at least at this point. And when she kind of jumped back and said, well, who made that deficit? Well, yeah, this is ultimately the machinations above the individual. But if the $1,000 results in this type of really the type of society that I've briefly covered in the discussion that I've had here, I mean, is it not impossible to think that there could be like, hey, pay $10 towards the national debt with excess disposable UBI that you don't need this month, and maybe enjoy this kind of benefit or that kind of benefit? Like, it seems to me that I'm answering that question from a very unlearned, very naive, very myopic example, but I could see ways in which, listen, this is just it. If the deficit's a concern, we're not solving it by not addressing the problems that we have right now. We're not solving it by not addressing the ways in which means-tested welfare is incredibly inefficient for many use cases and fails some of the people most in need. So again, that conversation, I think there's some interesting discussion to be had there, but God forbid you're going to get a bipartisan discussion on that. But let's continue.
Drivers. Right now, it's the most common job in 29 states. The amount of value that gets generated from that, immense, almost unbelievable. And right now, the American people will get zero of that value. So if you put a mechanism in place, you can actually generate hundreds of billions of dollars.
How is Amazon?
Wait, hold on, because
take a break.
We're going to take a break, but we're coming right back. Stick around.
This is what I'm
He's gonna
talking
stick around.
about.
You stick around.
Advertisement break, commercial break. Ugh. You guys feel that? Like, my skin's raised. The hair on my skin. Ooh, gross. So gross.
To get to know more about your policies, let's do a lightning speed round with you.
Sure.
Universal health care, yes or no?
Yes.
Robert Mueller is set to testify July 17th. Should Congress start impeachment hearings?
We'd have to wait until his testimony, but I'm thrilled that he's going to be testifying for Congress.
What would he say that would change your mind to a definite yes?
I'd have to see what the facts were. Also, I've been trying to put it on Congress to make that determination, really, because that's their job.
Okay.
I like that answer. It may feel like a cop-out. But I like that answer. One, no matter what, honestly, because you've heard it from me, you've heard it tonight, this vision of what a universal basic income means to me, that's more important to me than whether or not Donald Trump is impeached. I mean, okay, up to a degree, don't get me wrong. But like I'm saying, if we can get him out of the White House at the end of the day and implement a universal basic income, I would be willing to accept anything for that. Up to high crimes and misdemeanors, but it has to be and misdemeanors. All right, never mind. I'm not going to go there. So it may feel like a cop-out, and I understand that. But he's saying the complete truth, which is this is Congress's duty. It's a non-starter to even be asking presidential candidates that, and that's true. That is true. But at the same time, it's understood to be the case that people aren't interested in politics unless there's a presidential election. So this is a way to stir up the type of answer that's needed from the general population for impeachment. And again, that's a good question, though. I mean, if we were looking back on Watergate scandal, was any of that because I listened to Slow Burn, and I don't think that they spent a lot of time discussing the next election and how that dynamic played out. So overall, I'm okay with that answer.
Closing the wealth gap, especially when it comes to the African American community, reparations a part of that?
Well, Martin Luther King championed a dividend for all Americans. I think that's where we should start, $1,000 a month for every American. And then reparations is a whole separate issue because the $1,000 dividend doesn't address the historical legacy of slavery.
Why should rich white people get $1,000 a month?
Well, the great thing is that it'll remind them that they're still an American.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy that the deservedness angle, she brought up earlier, the deservedness of a give a man a fish, teach a man a fish. But she's also looking at it in the other direction, saying, well, if you're already taken care of and good, then why do you get it too? So this is it just feels controlling. It feels very, I want to have a say. I want to have a say in who gets it, right? Which I understand. I understand the impulse, but I don't know.
But in Alaska, in Alaska they have a dividend.
No one at this table needs an extra $1,000 a month.
But in Alaska they have a dividend of $1,000.
Well, I wouldn't feel right.
So Megan, this is the first thing. She's going to do it again in a second. She's apparently the conservative voice here on the table, but what she's saying here isn't the conservative angle. This is a liberal objection to UBI, saying, I don't need it. None of us on this table need it. We need to be, okay, in a way you can think of this as quasi-libertarian view of it's not effective. You know, we could spend more money on a fewer amount of people, except I have issues with that because you're spending money on the administration involved. So at the end of the day, are you able to spend more money for the people who just need it? The universality offers the ability to just get it out. It's effective. It's clear. It's concise. But there's also a supreme amount of power in the fact that it doesn't have the stigma, and they bring this up in a second. It doesn't have the stigma involved with, well, it's something that they get. It's something that they get, but I don't. That sucks. And that's the issue up first with reparations. I like the answer that he gave to reparations, which was like, universal basic income needs to be the first step. It's not going to address that very real problem of long-term systemic inequality, but it's so effective, and you're not going to wind up with the bottom rungs of society fighting against each other, saying, why do they get the check? Why do they get the check? I'm suffering. There's 66 million white people in poverty, and a lot of them aren't getting any help whatsoever. How might they respond to reparations? Universality is very important in that regard. And ideally, too, once you get past the stigma of the parasitism issue, right? and you get past a lot of the ingrained hard stigmas of what it means to be deserving, then the case for reparations isn't so, there's not so much gravity, I guess, not so much ability to twist the conversation from one angle or the other angle. And ideally, I would hope that conversation would go a lot easier. I recognize that that's an idyllic take on that, but let's continue.
I mean, when there's still veterans on the street and homeless.
But that's what you could use it for. That's what he means when he says it reminds you you're an American. It doesn't. It's not just about what you do for yourself. It's what you do for other folks.
And in Alaska, they give the dividend to everyone.
And okay, so what you may not have heard that they were talking over each other, but she said you could give it away. She responded to Megan saying, "I don't need it." This is so huge. I've spoken a little bit, and I'm going to keep talking about it right now, about the idea of mana. Mana is a cryptocurrency, a universal basic income cryptocurrency, and it's so cool. I haven't checked on it in a few months, and ultimately I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. But when you are signing up for it, they're explaining their long-term vision. Basically, with this universal basic income on the blockchain, you'd be able to identify demographics. You'd be able to identify places in need, and basically build a portfolio of exchangeable universal basic income. So say that you don't need it, but you want to be charitable, like rich people apparently tend to be. They love talking about how charitable they are. Well, then now you're able to have an access to a portfolio and say, hey, you want to send some of your UBI over to Flint, Michigan? Do you want to send some of your UBI over to the means-tested welfare systems that are still existing, right? That could use the bolstering, the special needs cases, right? So suddenly you would have targeted philanthropy, right? Leveraging the tech of today and tomorrow. That's the discussion that we need from our presidential candidates. That's the kind of discussion that a universal basic income precludes, man. Oh. It means so much to be in the Yang Gang because we're getting these cerebral concepts. How cool would it be if that was what was being talked about on the national debate stage, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Let's continue. Let's continue.
Everyone in Alaska from the petroleum fund, $1,000 to $2,000 a year, and it depoliticizes it, it destigmatizes it. It's just everyone gets it, and so there's no like, oh, you get it, I don't.
Right.
Immigration.
I'm the son of immigrants myself. I think we need to create a path to citizenship over the long term.
So you also have some unusual and I would say unorthodox stances as well. You came out against circumcision, correct?
Well, you know, I think parents need to educate themselves on what the health information is. You know, my wife and I obviously made a certain determination, but it should be in the hands of the parents.
In the hands of what?
The parents.
Parents just...
Because when you have a male baby, they just toss it on you.
Well, they tried to.
They try to just toss it.
Yeah, they tried to.
Yeah, right there, her face. Maybe this isn't Joy. It's the other individual on the left next to Megan. When she brought this up, you could tell that she was like, I'm happy that we're at least talking about this. Overall, yeah, I'm very happy that the circumcision thing is just easily explained as like, yeah, parents' choice. That's all I was saying. You know, because for some people thought, oh, wow, this is going to take him down or something. That was fine. No issues with that.
You also believe in free marriage counseling?
Yeah, the data shows that if you grow up in a two-parent household, certain outcomes are more likely. And so from a societal perspective, it makes perfect sense to try and keep couples together if they want to stay together.
So would that just be like a social worker for every couple in America?
Well, it'd be like a marriage counseling, you know, stipend, essentially, where it's like if you decide to seek marriage counseling, then they can just go and get paid by...
My version of marriage counseling is drinking Jack Daniels, shooting some guns, and hanging out. So, like, my version is different than it works. No, just like going to a range. So I'm just saying, like, this universal a peg for every hole is always my problem with the left right now. There is not every American is different. Every American does things in different ways. Oh, yeah. So I would.
All right. So there's two things to discuss here, and she just pushes right on to the next question. And I'm not gonna rail too hard against her here because I don't know. She may be the only conservative voice on this show, and she may be just conditioned to be combative in some way. Unfortunately, though, it's coming off in a very, like, she's not thinking about this, right? She said, oh, Andrew Yang's gonna show up, I'm like writing down and not actually giving any thought to the questions that I'm saying, and it's hurting the image overall. I don't know anything about Meghan McCain. I'm not gonna talk down on her here. But all right, two things just happened right there. One, they start talking about the marriage council, and she says, so what, is this going to be a social service worker for everyone? And he says, no, it's going to be more like a stipend. It's going to be a cash amount. Like if you need marriage counseling, then it is subsidized. We find this service to be effective for overall health and well-being outcomes long term. And this is an amazing response in a couple of different ways, because there's a way of answering that question and coming off as a what would you call it? A misogynist, maybe, right? There's a large portion of people on the right who would say that it's once you're married, you get married, you have a kid, it's your duty to stay together, to be with that kid, because that, our society has to be built on a nuclear family. It has to be built with more parents than one. And in ways, this conversation is a little it's a little utilitarian. There's a word I'm looking for here. It's a little devoid of empathy. It talks a little down on the status of women in many cases. It talks down on the status of minority relationships in many ways. But the answer that Yang proposes here says, in many ways, yes, we've identified many long-term benefits from stable families. But instead of making this some kind of ideological campaign, of some kind of ideological forceful initiative with a hint of malice or a hint of spite or a hint of disgust for the way that we live, he says, we build a system in place to make that available, counseling available. So that's the first thing. I really liked that answer. But two, she comes and then says, this is the issue that I have with the Democrats. There's no specific special needs person. Everyone has different needs. And this is what I'm saying here, is that she hasn't been thinking about what he's saying. This is the power of cash, okay? And this is the discussion on means-tested welfare versus cash in a nutshell. And in fact, if she was more conservative or was more liberal, she would quickly understand that this is a non-starter. Yes, you're exactly right. You can hear him agreeing here, and I feel like he's about to come back and say, this is what I'm saying. So anyways, she moves right on. Cash is flexible, right? And I've brought up the issue that some people find themselves in, where they have to leave their kid at daycare, but they can't leave their kid at daycare without diapers, but they can't buy diapers with food stamps. And so you have this weird conundrum, this weird issue, this weird problem that is much bigger in perspective to you as a poor person than it is to just a middle class person with cash, right? Right? The middle class person living better, having better health outcomes. What's the difference? They have cash. They have flexible purchasing buying power. The middle class person isn't relying upon systems or stuff like that. Cash allows the individual to make their own decisions. And so what she's saying there makes no sense, right? She said, my version of marriage counseling is downing a bottle of Jack and shooting guns. Okay, guess what? You've got $1,000 a month. Go for it. Go for it. Meghan, come on. Like, I know you can get this. Let's go.
I don't know. You also believe in staffing a White House psychologist.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's a good one.
Ironically enough, this is one of my least liked policies about Yang. I don't agree with the notion of a White House psychologist. I mean, I think there could be a way of doing it, but we would have to be extremely careful, and you just have to be a scholar of historical figures and Rasputin to understand why that's not a fantastic idea. through and through. I understand where he's coming from, where we're all coming from, where we want to make sure that our president is fit mentally and otherwise. It shouldn't be an issue in the first place. You know, you've got 360 million, or I guess 300 million voting people. You should never wind up in a situation where somehow a person's in office and he's not well, right? Okay. But again, in terms of the overall scope of thing, hell, it's a small nitpick that I have.
We need to destigmatize mental health issues in this country generally, and so...
All right, so I just briefly saw, Elsa says, I need to read Andrew's book. I feel validated in what I see each time I hear an excerpt from his book. I'm going to send you over a DM after today's episode, because I have yet to really do the full giveaway, but I know that you're a little bit newer to the Yang Gang, and I would like to share with you an Audible account. If you already have an Audible account, we might be in trouble, but I'll share the details in this video, and I'm still going to do two books for the other people because I've got 6 credits, and I think they're still charging me. I really thought that I don't know. I thought they passed a law where you can't like get rid of credits or anyway. Let's just continue. Elsa, I'd love to be able to get you the book. It's a very good listen.
If we have a psychologist in the White House, I thought it was a good idea before the current administration.
Do you think that he's capable of even doing such a thing?
You know what? It doesn't even matter.
We'll have one in my administration.
That's right. Thanks to Andrew Yang. Really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep an eye on you. We'll be right back.
All right. So, whew. Oh man, it's still really hot over here, but I'm doing okay here. Okay, so overall, that went extremely well. I went in with a little bit of trepidation, but I loved everything about that. He was able to just. There's never an interview that really goes poorly with Yang. His ideas stand on their own merit. And I'm wondering what else we could do before the July debates. This is fantastic. I think this alone, we're going to see some amount of activity in his polls. And it's not going to be immediate. It may even be after the debates. But I'm really hoping that this is some of the push we need to get up to, I think, 4%, I believe. Or is it just 2%? No, I think it's 4%. 2%? I really know these things. Again, my brain's working a little slowly here. So, again, The View. Overall, it went very well. There was a little bit that I'm going to discuss here as we enter into the final segment of the show that was kind of briefly touched on during the View episode. But really quick, I'm going to go ahead and read some of the comments that we've had here tonight. There's a war of... Oh, wow. There's a War on Normal People audiobook on YouTube. That's right. Okay, so at the very least, what I'll do is I'll shoot you over a link to that YouTube video. I think the campaign's okay with it being out there. Again, really, visibility is the number one thing to do. And how about I just leave a comment on the end of this video for anyone else who may also be interested in just checking out the book on YouTube. And really, at this point, I'm not sure if there's any way that I can do this giveaway. I've never done it before, man. So if you are interested in a copy and you shoot me over a DM, I've got 2, and I'll be happy to share them with you. Being president is a high-pressure job. Having a mental health professional to help the president deal with the stress isn't a bad idea at all. The trepidation that comes with this is the thought that you could have an individual with an amount of power over the executive, the commander-in-chief. Basically, in some scenario, this person may have the ability to blackmail, say, oh, wow, your tests don't look too good here. Listen, it's a paranoid take on the issue. But not only that, this individual could be a type of person that has lobbying access. They've got an ear to the president. The vetting that's involved would be of utmost importance. Again, I'm not saying that it's the worst idea that he of all time. I'm just saying that it would involve a lot of amount of tact and transparency in order for me to get on board with it through and through. But again, it's not like it's a deal breaker for me whatsoever. I like how he brought up reparations back to UBI while not discussing the need for a discussion about dismissing the need for a discussion about reparations. Yeah, again, I really think that he's handled it very well. And I think, this is so much more important in terms of, and I've brought this up, is like, well, what's going to help marginalized communities get on their feet and immediately have the most impact? Would it be a lump sum check of $20,000? And I mean, I know that the discussion about reparations is currently ongoing, right? Lottery winners don't always have the best time with their. That's actually a myth. Most of them continue to work and are fine. But personal finance isn't a natural human skill set, and I think that just reparations wouldn't result in the type of, like a lump sum reparation wouldn't result in the type of long-term equilibrium and that we're seeking with the discussion about reparations. So I think he's got it right. I hope that answer will fly when it's asked further, saying this isn't actually the discussion that we should be having. What really needs to happen is this. And Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech that he gave when he brought up what a universal basic income to him meant, and he said, like, it is my opinion that this is what the civil rights movement should be transitioning towards, is the idea of a universal basic income. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And it really does drive home the notion that, hey, this is the conversation to have about systemic equality and the lack of it. Very, very powerful stuff. Let's see here. Lots of discussion happening through it. Again, and I think this is happening all throughout the country right now, in every household. I really, really do hope that this has gotten some people who may not be very interested overall into the discussion. This is why I don't like the reparations talk, and I'm black. Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard a lot of people also say that. A lot of people who are like, this isn't the right path forward, and I'm speaking of someone from that community. And I really do think that Charlemagne the God in the Breakfast Club kind of brought that home, where he sat there and he went, this is it. Like, you pump money, but you pump consistent inflows of cash into these communities, and that's what they need. I think that there may have been a Vice nightly news session that they had on these communities of people who like are driven, or maybe it was Killer Mike. It may have been Killer Mike on Netflix to like make these businesses that cater to those communities, these local currencies. And Alyssa, I know that you're interested in South Korea too. I really do recommend the episode of the Basic Income podcast concerning South Korea. It is so interesting what they're doing. There is actually a hybrid system of universal basic income and local currency, basically currency that you can only spend in your local community to buy goods from your local grocer. And it seems like this is able to, I'm actually really fascinated in this idea right now. And in some ways, it's like, it's a non-starter if it's just a local currency, because you can't, we want the flexibility of a cash that is accepted no matter what. But at the second time too, this fights back against the type of bleeding dry that globalization and Amazon and everything has overall. It is a very interesting concept. I'm going to do a lot more reading into it before I really go into it, but we'll have an episode about that here on Securing the Bag one night. Move away from boomer scarcity, pull up your bootstraps mentality towards one of abundance for all and humanity. It's so tragic. It's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy. The more that you understand a universal basic income, and the more that you come face to face with these lines of thinking that are all in all detrimental, that are made from human reasoning and human understanding of worth and deservingness, but we want, all of the ways that you can learn that we spend more money to make sure that people get that help that they need. We spend more money in the worry that they're never going to teach themselves how to fish. No one knows how to fish, okay? No one does, but cash is going to buy you some fish, and that should be okay at the bare minimum. That's the thing, is we aren't relying on people to fish anymore. And some people may stagnate. They may stagnate. But so many more people are going to continue along the path of self-actualization. And I really do think that that equation is very, very off balance, where you've got so many more people who are going to do very amazing things with the universal basic income. Let's see. Mental health would improve so much, would help solve gun violence, climate change deniers, etc. It's these rippling effects that have implications for all issues, all societal issues, that will continue to have effects through generations if we make this shift. It's so insane. Can you imagine the smiles and goodwill among fellow Americans with UBI and Medicare for All and human-centered capitalism and humanity first mentality? I've been wondering about this skerfuffle, this fisticuffs, this exchange of words and milkshakes in Portland recently. And I do wonder, part of me says, well, it's silly to think otherwise, but I do wonder if every single one of those individuals had $1,000 and they could be spending their time doing something else. Would we have seen that? Would we may still, yes. Well, for one, it's shown that people are much more active. This was shown in the South Korea Basic Income podcast. They found immediate participation in politics in the test group and beyond, I believe, in local activism, national activism. So yeah, people have the resources and the ability to speak more about what they may be passionate about. But I do think as well, maybe we would see less of what we saw transpire that day, because how much of what they're talking about is going to be positively alleviated with universal basic income. So I don't know. I find it just so hard to believe that you could get a group of people who are still going to be, I don't know. I am definitely an optimist. I recognize that about myself, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Let me see here. Thank you, Seth. My mom gets mad at servers who don't care, but I'm like, Mom, how could they care? I've noticed this amongst millennials, and like, especially when I was younger in high school, and if I would be out with friends and we would be at dinner with like their parents or my parents, we would collectively kind of cringe because at moments where maybe the food came out wrong. Like, it would be our plate, right? It would be, you order something, it comes out wrong, and like for some reason your mom or your dad was paying enough attention to realize that the order is messed up, and you sit there and you go, oh God, no, because they say, hey, you were supposed to get that, and you're like, oh, just stop, right? And then they snap, never snap, or they wave, or they're pointing. And they use this tone or something, and I've recognized this with most millennials. It may be different for silver spoon millennials, but there's this understanding of like, God, these people's lives suck, and I know because my life sucks. It's like this collective understanding of I don't expect that much, and I'm okay with that, actually. And hell, it's a pretty good thing that I'm having this dinner in the first place, because it's extremely expensive and my parents are paying for it, so I don't care. Right? That's like I don't know if that's just a generational thing or not, right? Because like when the boomers were growing up, I think they had this understanding that that they have money, their money's good, and when they're paying for a service, they're going to get what they want. That kind of mindset was really entrenched. That was back when I think maybe there was a lot more care from employers about like, we're going to make sure that people are the best service that we have, and then people were actually being paid enough money to live. And so, yeah, like you went out, you were going to spend food at this place, your hard-earned money, you're going to get what you need. And then everything kind of changed a little bit. And I don't know. Can you imagine the, just answered that here as well. Okay, so it looks like I'm just about caught up. Now, the final discussion that is going to be the meat and potatoes. Actually, that was the meat and potatoes. This is just a little bit more of a tangent here. My contact is really messing up if you see me messing with that. So, what was one of the things they brought up? I'm not sure. I may find the tangent here, but there is a article here that we're going to read about I don't know how I got on this. I was just thinking so much about this. After 4th of July, nearly 4,000 pounds of trash found on San Diego beaches after the July 4th celebration. This actually isn't the one that I was originally reading. One was about Lake Tahoe. It just said Lake Tahoe. I don't know where. I should know. Is that Utah? I don't know. Utah? I don't know. But anyways, so volunteers picked up 3,916 pounds of trash from San Diego County beaches Friday morning after this year's 4th of July celebrations. The amount is nearly double what was picked up last year's celebration due to an increase in volunteer participation. Surfrider Foundation, I Love a Clean San Diego, and other groups organized the annual cleanup that brought nearly 800 volunteers to pick up the trash at the Ocean Beach Pier, Ocean Beach Dog Park, Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, and Oceanside Pier. Now, it was really crazy. In the one that I was reading, it was this person who said, it's not an ashtray. They found over 5,000 cigarette butts just tossed in the sand. Disgusting amounts of filth and trash that make you despair for humanity. And you say, oh my God, how can people do this? How can people do this? And I'm in the chat here. It's on Reddit, you know, and there's disparaging narratives being placed upon the state of humanity. Of God, we're not making any progress at all if people are this kind of assholishness, you know. But this is the thing. Here, let me read a little bit from this article to prime the discussion. And we are talking about a universal basic income. Just want to make sure that that's known. We're not just talking about environmentalism right now. All right, so listen to this. Cleanup crews are racing to clear acres of debris at the largest Dakota Access protest camp before the spring thaw turns to snowy, trash-covered plains into an environmental disaster area. This is the Dakota Access protest camp. So in case you aren't aware, there was a huge hoopla. This is dating back all the way to Obama's administration of a pipeline that's running, I think, from Canada down through Dakota, right through a Indian reserve, Native American, excuse me. I'm Native American. Wow, I can't believe that. Native American reserve. And a whole bunch of activism is occurring. I don't know the specifics. That was back, I was in high school back then. But, you know, this has been going on for a while and recently. Anyways, so what this is, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers announced Friday, this is on Sunday, February the 5th, 2017, last year, announced Friday that the camp located on federal land would be closed February 22nd in order to prevent injuries and significant environmental damage in the likely event of flooding in this area at the mouth of the Cannonball River in North Dakota. Without proper remediation, debris, trash, and untreated waste will wash into the Cannonball River and Lake Oahe. I'm sorry. The Corps said in its statement, those involved in the cleanup effort, led by the Standing Rock Sioux, said it would take weeks for private sanitation companies and volunteers to clear the expanse of abandoned tents, teepees, sleeping bags, blankets, canned foods, supplies, and just plain garbage littering the OCT Sacoin camp. It's unfortunate, again, that this just goes against what they're fighting against, is leaving that stuff and abandoning it, and obviously the environment, the river. I'm not sure what that is. Scott Davis, North Dakota Commissioner for Indian Affairs, told KFYR TV in Bismarck. So what this is a massive amount of litter. I'm telling you, massive. There's pictures of bobcats, you know, like trucks by the dozens, picking up these massive mounds, these pyramid mounds of trash and tents and cans of food, everything, right? There are people across the country who were sending these supplies to these environmentalists, and because in their heart they're thinking, oh man, I've got this 9 to 5 and I'm here, you know, in Florida doing this work and everything. What can I do? I'm going to send them these supplies. And those supplies wound up being their own environmental damage, environmental disaster, basically. So what is this? This is a group of people who have a very strong urge in their heart to save the world, to save this country. A lot of it's probably those damn capitalists, those damn oligarchs in the oil industry. How dare they? They're probably a lot of that. There's probably a lot of new age people. But one thing we can agree on is that these people want a better environment, a better place. And yet, these same people wind up creating their own natural disaster, their own environmental disaster. So what does this say? I was thinking about this for so long the other day. This is a lack of self-awareness. This is good intentions hidden, locked away behind just complete lack of self-awareness. And I can guarantee that a lot of people on these San Diego beaches just enjoying their 4th of July, maybe they were just a bit drunk, they're good people. Okay, they just aren't self-aware. And as I was having these thoughts, I thought, man, I hate to admit this, but I've been camping with an Eagle Scout, and if you're in the chat, you know who you are, Eagle Scout, and it was very. I'm just thinking back to that time that we had, and I feel like there may have been a moment where I had left something, and he was like, no, listen, man, we got to get everything and like leave no trace, right? But he didn't harp on it, and he didn't like make this a learning moment or anything. But I kind of realized that I had my own moment of like I was gonna leave something behind. I forget what it was, and I can guarantee it wasn't a massive thing. I thought it's probably biodegradable. I'm not sure, right? Even if it was, though, this is the thing, right? What I was realizing is that even me, myself, and I like to think of myself as an individual who's above your average person when it comes to being respectful of just overall things other than myself. I know the world doesn't revolve around me, but no, like, listen, if I'm going to be incredibly honest right now, which I think is important that we have to be able to do that, I could definitely see myself being someone who didn't leave no trace. And as I'm thinking about this idea, this concept of leave no trace, I'm suddenly understanding, right, that the human being is the only animal, the only thing on this planet that will impact the environment around it in a way that isn't a natural force, right? We have that burden upon us, and it takes an awareness of that fact, right? Because we're born with that capacity, but we're not born with the ability to understand it. We're born with the same instincts and drive to use our environment as any other animal would, right? So it takes a moment of self-awareness, and what that is Education. That's the missing link here. It's nothing about the character of people involved. And in some cases it may be. I'm generalizing. But it's education. It's having that moment that I had of aha. Respecting the environment means respecting your ability as a human to have an impact upon it, to be intelligent enough to understand. This is a convergence of spirituality and intellectualism, of knowledge and smarts. The convergence happens in self-awareness, in being aware of your existence of a human being and what you can do. And let's just be quite disturbingly honest right now, we're never going to get to 100% education amongst the population. For some people, this is just never going to get through their heads. However, what no one's talking about are these groups of people who immediately are heading out, right? Because even as I'm just having this moment of weird, I don't know, it's all sparking in my head. I swear I was completely sober, probably. As it's all sparking in my head, I'm thinking, wow, like that respect. I could go out there. I could clean with these other people who are out there. And I felt this empathy of, man, that would be an amazing thing to do, to restore this area to a pristine condition. And yeah, I would like to do that, And there are people everywhere who have had this moment, who have this relationship and this respect and this love for the environment, and they aren't compensated by a paycheck, right? Okay, so here's how we're relating this to a universal basic income. What would it mean, again, so much for these stories? I found myself a little just, disappointed, especially in these Reddit comments, because Reddit, you like to think, is a little bit more, they're not so base as everyone else, right? That all of these people were disparaging on, God, these unwashed masses, these idiots, these terrible people, this man, isn't it just woe to be human, because everyone sucks. This place sucks. This planet sucks. Screw everything. And after I'd had this moment, it was like, no, like, there's a chance that we could really do something here. I don't know. I'm not going to get too kumbaya on tonight's stream, but I really do want to impress the importance on what it would mean, right? If you're talking about a return on investment of a universal basic income, to suddenly let people, like, I can't go out and just decide to clean things up. I am barely making ends meet right now. My car's broken down. I can't get out there. But yeah, hell, I could take a week off with the universal basic income and go out and connect with my environment and not have that voice in the back of your head. And this is a voice, okay? I'm so sorry to get a little out there, right? I'm going from the convergence of spirituality and knowledge. I'm going a little bit more down the spirituality path here. But no, this is true. This is true, and you're gonna know that it's true. There's a voice in the back of your head that is saying, are you being productive right now? Are you being as productive as you could be in this moment, because time is passing? Tick, 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 tick. And if you aren't being productive, you're doing something wrong, okay? And this has not been a voice. When you were a kid, this voice was not in your head. It wasn't in your head. And more than, about 300 years ago, this voice wasn't such a predominant factor in people's lives. But it's slowly taking control over everything. You'll no longer be able to enjoy time off, because the voice in your head is saying, I could be spending this time being productive and doing something. And if I'm not doing something, then I'm not doing good. That is a dangerous voice. It's a necessary voice. But it has its corner, okay? It's gotten a little too big, is the point that I'm trying to make. When you can't sit still and do something without that voice hitting you, whispering into your ear like a snake slithering around, like, hey, why are you just laying there? Oh man. Universal basic income will change so much, and we'll have a renaissance of thought. I really hope to see it. So, guys, the view looks really good from here. It does. I was a little down last week. You may have seen it, and I know Yang had some blue pill tweets and everything, but I'm feeling it coming back. We might not have a great time during the July debates either, but as I said, the cat is out of the bag, and we're going to secure the bag with the cat in it or out of it. No, it's out of it, so we can't do anything. The view looks good from here. I'm seeing the energy in the Yang Gang. I'm seeing it more and more each and every day, so we just got to keep it up. Let's just see some of these comments here. Boy, I can't believe I made it this long. Like I said, it's really been a crazy day, but I'm going to read off some of these comments and we will wrap up in just a little bit. Probably why anxiety is such a thing right now. Absolutely. It's being just pounded into people's heads, and especially along millennials too. And it starts the moment that you're in compulsory education, the type of just severe, like, dire straits of making sure you're getting into the right college, right? We're like, the boomers, if they graduated high school, they were going to do okay. That was the bar they needed to reach, right? Like I said, this voice is being pervasively encouraged by a really messed up relationship that we have with the concept of self-worth and the concept of labor and value. And that's why UBI means so much to me. Let's see. The goal here should be to discover you don't have a head. Consciousness is something that doesn't exist in your head. Spirituality is a hard thing. One, just because so many people have attached so many woo-woo type notions to it. But it's not just spirituality. It's self-awareness and being a little bit more in tune with who you are as a human being. I don't know. I view this again as the first step towards a societal awakening. It's the second cultural revolution, the 1960s for something. It's gonna make this seem like you don't even know. Yeah, I think this is the way that we move forward there, but it's not gonna work. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm normally an optimist, but about this, sometimes I'm not so sure. Rachel says, I'm so proud of how Andrew did today. Me too. And I like I said, I don't think that he can really have a bad interview. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Megan just didn't bring the fire that she thought she had, but you could tell that she was trying to trip him up in some way. And he's got it. The entire campaign, they have it. They know. And yes, welcome to the chat, Rachel. I'm so glad that you're here. Michael says, I was thinking of using Arduino to build a LED message billboard to mount on my rear windshield to becast Yang and stuff. Is that legal? I would say go for it, but I don't want you to get pulled over. Let me see here. Regarding the trash topic, what is your take on the 5,000 bicycles left abandoned at Burning Man? Okay, so Burning Man's, this is interesting, right? This is where the new age woo-woo spirituality craze suddenly gets morphed into the bougie, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be young and hip and, but man, yeah, it's so, that's gross because these people are supposedly reaching this enlightened state and oh, free love, man, and everything, but then we see that what they leave behind is so grotesque. It's very gross, especially since these people, I don't know, they're spending $2,000, $5,000 on a ticket. That's a little problematic to me. That's like a one step further. That's gross. That's gross if you ask me. That's just all I have to say about that. But overall, again, I think the same applies. That there's always going to be some people who lack self-awareness. There are just some people, right? My girlfriend works with dogs. She loves dogs. And I've gotten an insight into how there are two different types of dogs. There are dogs that are just all dog. Like I'm saying completely dog. They have one initiative. They have one primary, and that is to find food. Every single second of the day is food. How do I find food? And the relationship that they have with humans is basically one of a drug addict trying to find heroin at all costs and being as friendly as to his family as he can. But that dog will eat you the moment that you keel over and don't fill up his food bowl. So there's all dog, but then there's these very, very intelligent dogs who understand. They have an understanding of what's going on. They're reacting to your reactions as well. They're effectively a familiar. They feel the emotions that you put off. It's crazy. You can look at them and you can understand that they have a higher consciousness. And the same, I'm so sorry to say this, but you all know that I'm very optimistic about humans in general. The same applies for human beings. There are just some people out there who will never have an understanding of their situational awareness of what it won't be there. But that's not what we should focus on, really. What we should focus on is that there are so many more people who will be there as someone who's going to right the wrong. And I know that those people outnumber the others. Okay, that's the optimist in me speaking right there. That's the optimist in me speaking. But I really do feel, and if not currently, there is an amount of people who just have to be educated. Education is just what's lacking. And we will have more humans with, not just humans, right? But more people with that deeper kind of understanding. That's my thoughts. And again, I know I'm an optimist, but we'll get there. And who knows? Some people, they just need to, well, hey, cannabis is being legalized across the country, so we might see some shifts with or without a UBI. Who knows? A clever tech Yang-ganger could build projection billboards, shine elect Andrew Yang 2020 on the sides of buildings and high traffic areas. Again, I really loved the idea of the hologram with Andrew Yang, but again, is this gonna scare the boomers? That's the question at this point. How are the boomers gonna react to the hologram? It may not be the best thing. In my ideal world, holograms would, oh man, that would be so cool. Let's get on it. But yeah, for sure. I think that there's a lot of interesting ideas. Nothing else, just use those business cards and tell people. Hell, I went to the doctor today and I was like, have you heard about Andrew Yang? I'm telling people all about it. I don't care. You know, I never even speak to people. So if I am speaking to them, how about I tell them about Andrew Yang? I'm calling my representatives to leave a comment about increasing litter fines and litter patrol. Litter fines, they do a lot, but they're not going to completely 100% solve the problems either. It's insane. And like, that's the issue with the Burning Man problem, right? There are some individuals where a fine is just a fee on, you know, right? Like, I remember someone saying, I was driving with a very rich person and we were going to an event and he illegally parked on the side of the road. And I was like, hey, you can't park there. He's like, yeah, you can. It just costs $75, right? That's an issue. That's an issue. If we had proportional fining, that may be a different story. I would love to have more conversation. Boy, that would be really cool to have a presidential candidate bring up proportional fining. That I would really gravitate towards a candidate who started talking about that. And I know a lot of people would too. A lot of people, when you tell them, hey, isn't it kind of messed up that this is the thing? You know, yeah. Yang is not even president yet, and he has inspired me to be more involved in politics in a few short months than I have ever been in my entire life. Jorl, I think you are not alone there. I was pretty involved in 2016, but what I did not do in 2016, I never made memes, and I found myself making memes for Andrew Yang. I was so into it because I've loved UBI for a while, but as soon as I started feeling the momentum, the energy, I started making memes left and right. But now I'm trying to be a little bit more professional, but I miss the memes. I might go back. I might make like a small, you know, anonymous Twitter account so I can just meme lord it up all the time. You would see less violence and more discussion. And this is probably back when I was speaking about the Portland. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's what I would expect. I'm not going to see less activism, but less violence and more people, more minds coming together and saying, hey, we can solve problems. Because that is a tremendous quality of a universal basic income, is that suddenly it's no longer about fear. It's about, hey, like, we have the capacity to solve these problems. That is what makes humanity in general the apex, you know, whatever it is that we are, is the fact that we have the ability to critically think about things and solve problems. We are problem solvers, and we have an innate desire to solve problems, which means that the Yang Gang is going to spur up that innate desire to solve problems. We can't go wrong there. We can't go wrong. We just have to meet the mile markers, and it'll happen. It'll happen. It's going to feel natural in some ways, I think, because it's coming from a natural impulse. Phishing is getting automated away. It sure is. What will $1,000 in the hands of every customer do in the most poor communities in America? What will it do for businesses in those areas and jobs there? Lower crime rates in those areas? Yeah. Exactly. There are a lot of people who would make a decision on, I'm going to open up a bakery. Where am I going to open this bakery up? And you're not going to go to the areas where there's destitution, there's desolation, maybe is the better word there. Destitution sounds a little bit too weird. And suddenly that value equation isn't so critical. It's still there, sure, but suddenly, you know, no matter where you go, as long as there's a population of people, they have disposable income in some degree, in some measure, absolutely. And yeah, you've got a customer base that you know is going to be spending money. Whereas on the opposite end, right, the discussion about raising minimum wage, what is that doing? It's putting some amount of burden upon payroll, the business owner. And you're not guaranteed, right? You can be guaranteed that, sure, the people who are working minimum wage now have a higher wage, but you don't know that all of a sudden everyone has an increase in minimum wage. Like, those are there's a discussion about the long-term effects of minimum wage increases, and I'm all in favor of it. I love it. I've said that before, but this is like an immediate, right? An immediate action, an immediate remedy, which has wide-ranging, rippling effects. Oh, I love talking about it. I just love talking about this through and through. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just make sure I haven't missed any newer comments here. Let me see here. I'm impressed by Yang Gang's creativity and entrepreneurial spirit in getting the message out. It's inspiring. I've said this before, but I think you're gonna find the smartest members of our society, the most critically thinking members of our society, are gonna come out in droves. And if you know that's gonna be where our strength is coming from, is intelligent human beings pushing for this solution. Makes me wonder if other campaigns have that. I think we saw a lot of it in Bernie's campaign in 2016, but I think that he is losing those members left and right for the Yang Gang. Proportion of what? You want the government to track everyone's wealth. Let me see. I may be coming into a conversation that's happening a little in the middle. Let me see. Let me move up a little bit. This is why Super Chat. This is why I got to get to 1,000 subscribers. And y'all, I have noticed that we've been a little bit higher on the viewer count today. If you have enjoyed anything that I have been speaking about tonight, if you want to continue to see me pushing through these videos for Yang, make sure that you are subscribed. We're going to go ahead and just wrap up here. Again, thank you so much to my patrons. Thank you for helping me find ways to help us all secure the bag in any way whatsoever. I'm going to post a link to the audiobook version of The War on Normal People on YouTube at the end of this video. And let me see. I think that may just be about it. You know what? I can guarantee I'm missing something. It's been a long day. Y'all, thank you so much for securing the bag. We're going to be back tomorrow at 7 o'clock sharp. Thank you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful night tonight. Spend 10 minutes surrounded by green thinking about something that you're grateful for. This has been Securing the Bag. I'm signing off. Good night. Figure out how to turn off the stream. Heck, technology.